Hello, hi, good morning. Welcome back to a morning yap, where we're getting lotion from the child. Oh, okay. We're very interested in putting on lotion today. Could you move over here, baby? Anyway, what I actually got on here to talk about, I was listening to Pod Save the People. Y'all know from last week that I went away from the crooked media pods for a while, and I have been looking for pods that I like. And I think, thinking about this now, part of my issue is that, with any pod, right? And with almost anything, is how much the podcasts play into the binaries that are set up, right? They're either all black pods or all white pods or all women pods, or, all Democrat, all Republican. It's just there are more views. And this actually leads directly into what they were talking about. So they were talking about, first of all, they were talking about presidential candidates. I just realized that I didn't put my under eye stuff on, so we'll do that together. They were talking about presidential candidates, and they were talking about Jesse Jackson. And one of the things that they said, essentially about presidential candidates is the name recognition thing, all the stuff. And they were talking about, the vote blue no matter who, and how we're already having this discussion, and how do we circumvent that now in 2026, in the election being in 2028, etc. You can go listen. Today's episode is on Apple. I shared it in my broadcast channel as well as my WhatsApp channel. Okay. So then they were talking about Jesse Jackson, and they were saying, I think it was Miles that said or maybe it was Don. Somebody said that Jesse Jackson was really the last free black politician who was really able to be very progressive in certain areas like Palestine and others, right? And that the black politicians today, like Kamala, Jasmine, Corey, Stacey, these people really can't be, they're not free in their, because of the way the system works, right? And then they had a conversation about Obama and the ways that Obama talked about black people and etc. And so anyway, it was an interesting discussion. But what I came on here to say, they were talking, like I said, they were talking about Jesse Jackson, and one of the conversations that was had was Jesse Jackson, there is room for critique. This is the wrong color, y'all. There is room for critique of Jesse Jackson. And I was sort of there's room for critique of everyone, right? There's room for critique and positivity. And I think, and I've talked about this before, but and I talked about it literally at the beginning, one of my biggest issues with politics and with affinity spaces and with any space that is not inclusive, and inclusive spaces, they're few and far between, and obviously it's harder to hold. It is harder to hold so many viewpoints, right? But I believe that community is not cults, and so everybody can have their own opinions. But the point being that idea that we are either 100% behind someone or 100% against someone is really problematic, and of course there is room for critique of anyone, and we don't we can see, let me use MLK for an example. We can see the strides he made publicly in the political sphere, in the civil rights sphere, and we can also say he was an adulterer. And we can have that conversation. Both things can be true. I saw this reel the other day that was the both things can be true. People are just they're just refusing to pick a side. No, it's because humans are not built on a binary. We have individual beliefs, right? And the way that we come to those beliefs is based on our life experience, based on who is talking to us, based on what communities we're a part of at any given time. And our beliefs shift, they change. And and again, it goes back to these litmus tests and these purity tests of how long have you believed that Palestine should be free? Oh, only 4 years ago? Well, then you didn't have, you're not good enough. You should have had that belief since you were 2 in the womb. And it's just one of those things that it's just of course, we have got to learn that critique does not equal cancellation, and all critique does not need to be taken by the person that it's directed at, right? Okay, we'll do this color today. Hold on. Here we go. I'll help you put it on your face. Here. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. So anyway, no, you're not going to ruin this one too. Piper. So anyway, it was just an interesting conversation about being the last free politician, and then like the construing that because, you know, the last free Black politician like didn't have room for critique, and like I don't know, there was this interesting conversation, and I have struggled with this about like Jesse Jackson using Reverend Martin Luther King's assassination as a way to get into the popular, like to get more popular, right? To get more eyes. And I think this is one of those places where it's just like, I don't know, like why, like if your personal, and this is what I think Miles was saying, if your personal activism, if your pulling in eyes aligns with a mission, aligns with a movement, then why should you not get credit for that? Why should you not benefit from that? And again, like I have struggled with this in terms of talking about like privilege and culture and like the way in which I exist in the world, and how I utilize my privilege, because I know that more eyes would be on me because I am lighter and I have more perceivably, I have more access to things that certain people believe that I have access to. That may or may not be true, right? But in the end, like I have really tried to not personally benefit from the activist work that I do. But why shouldn't we? Right? And then lastly, there's this discussion on the podcast about like how the Democrats are historically against activists. You know, like activists try to do something, the Democrats like kind of vote it down. Like think about abolish the police and how the Dems like we're like, well, we'll just reform, right? Even though like on the most popular things like ICE, abolishing ICE, they won't make a move, right? And so like this is just an interesting discussion on like how do we hold the binaries and how do we, and maybe not even come to the center, but like what does that look like in a different world? What does that look like in the new world? What do we want to build? And how do we go about knowing that we don't have to 100% agree with each other in order to work with each other, right? And I know that sounds like bipartisan and it sounds like, oh, you know, it's like the both sides of the argument, but it is true. Like at some point, a certain segment of the population has to work together in order to make the new world, in order to change the political landscape, right? Like at some point that has to happen because one person, and this goes back to why I believe that like we cannot have cult of personality leadership. Instead, we have to like, in the way that politics are today, instead we actually need like round table leadership where there's more than one person leading, right? It's not just one person. It is more than one person, because when we are leading with only one person, that is how cults form. That is how we begin to, we just begin to devolve because it's one person's idea instead of the collective imagination. This has been a very long one, but it got me thinking this morning. So I encourage you to go listen to Pod Save the People. And I encourage you to listen to my content, please, Piper. And abolish ICE, make good trouble, do good work. I love y'all. Joy is our revolution, and I'll see you next time. Toodles.